Okay, in the last video we created a basic HTML page which includes banner image, which is inside a header. We've got some links inside of a nav, and we've got an image, then a block quote with a citation, some paragraphs of text, another citation, and then a footer. So all of those come between the body tags because they're visible. What we're going to do is we're going to use Dreamweaver to quickly style this page a little bit more, so to control the way that it looks. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to create some styles in a separate sheet. So the CSS styles needs to be visible. If it's not and you can't see the tab for it, look in window and you will find anything that you need in there. So at the bottom of the styles I've got okay, appears we're working again. Something that looks like a new document. It's actually a new CSS rule. So I'm going to click that and it would create a new rule, but at the bottom I can create a new style sheet file, and that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to create a new file. This is going to apply to tags. Now there are different things that you can select when you create a CSS rule. You can select a class, which is something that can be reused on any HTML element. You've got an ID, which is one specific element. You've got a tag, any HTML element, but it's the base of that element. So if you had a paragraph, every paragraph would follow that style unless you manage to make it break that style by using a class or an ID. Or a compound, which can be any of the above compounded together. But for this example we're just going to be working with tags to start off with. So rather than starting with a header, I'm going to start with the body tag, which is quite frequently used to set page sizes and just give an overall style. So I'm going to click OK. It's going to ask me what file I want to create, so I'm going to put that in my CSS folder and I'll call it main. It will add the .css itself and then click save. Okay, now what I'm going to do is just give it some basic styling. So I'll choose a font family. Could be anything. You can create your own font families as well. I'll go with this one at the top, Cambria Hopewell. Font size, I would recommend always working in EM, which is a relative font size, so therefore it's scaled based upon a few variables, the browser you're using, the screen that you're working with. It also means that your display should be a bit more consistent. Using point sizes is not really the best way to go about it, because that gives you a fixed size. So obviously that would be too big on some screens and too small on others. And we want to leave that in the control of the user. Maybe change the colour a little bit to make it look a bit different. So I'm going to go with a kind of charcoaly colour. My background, might give it a colour. Let's see if we can get off the colour wheel. Maybe it's just slightly bluey grey. Okay, I'll apply that. You'll see that it's done that. The design view lets you see roughly what it would look like in a browser. Then I'm going to go to the box and I'm going to set the width of the body. So that's basically everything within the body tags should fall inside of this width. You can scale within it. Okay, so I'm going to go with 1000 pixels, which should work on most monitors. Certainly will work very well on some handheld devices, but at the moment I'm just going to set it to that size and click apply. I'm going to give it some padding. All padding does is it moves text in from each edge of the box. So for instance 5 pixels will mean that everything's moved in from the top, the right, the left and the bottom by 5 pixels. And that should give it a nice little margin around the outside, or a border on the inside of the box as it were. So click apply to that, and I'm going to do with my margin, I'm going to leave that for now actually. I'm going to put a border on it, so I set the style, maybe just go with a solid line for now, a thin line, slightly lighter colour, and then I'll click, actually I'll go with dotted, something a little bit different. Click OK. So now let's save this file and the CSS file, which you'll notice has appeared. So we've now got a CSS file that's appeared, and if we click on that you can see just inside of it, so there's one rule at the moment which is the body, and there's some series of properties and values that are affected. So that's my selector, body's the selector, and we've got some curly brackets to surround or encapsulate the different properties that we're affecting. So I need to save that file. I can actually go File, Save All. It will save all files that are open, and then I will test this in a browser, see what it looks like at the moment. There we go. It's made a slight bit of difference. The typeface has changed. It's got slightly bigger. There is a dotted line that surrounds the whole of the page. There we go. You can see when I stretch the browser out that that is the size of the body at the moment. You should also be able to see that text doesn't go any closer than 5 pixels on either side. So it's already starting to look a little bit better than it did start off with. Okay, so the next thing I really need to do is set the image size of this image, because it's too wide, and I want to standardize all my images. Say for instance this was a dynamic site, would always fit within a specific size. So this is the one instance where I might actually use an identifier. So inside of the image tag I can add an ID. I can do that by either typing it in, or if I select the image and then put ID, I'll just call this title IMG, just short for title image. That should appear there. And then title image ID, title image. And in my style I will then add a rule for that selector. Because I've got the image currently selected, it's changed to ID, it's got that, and it's going to save in main CSS. So click OK, that's fine. Now what I want to do with the box is I'll set the width to 800 pixels to start off with. Click OK. Okay. Now that might look a bit funny inside of Dreamweaver. I'm just going to save all and see what it looks like in the browser. Because just pause that there. And that will allow it then to look and act as though it is block level, so now it's got the space in there. The other way of doing that would be to surround each tag with a paragraph or a similar tag. This serves that purpose. Okay. What I'm also going to do then is add in a rule for if the link is hovered over. I'm just going to change the background colour. Nice and simple. Choose a colour. Try and find something in around the colours we've had before. Maybe a little bit darker. Okay, that'll do. Close that line out, save it, and we're going to test it in the browser. And you'll see now when I roll over it, it looks more like a kind of button. We should then also be able to set the text align for each link to the center, so then they'll act like a block or a button type thing. And then we can also add to the nav, sorry, I've reverted to hand coding, some margins. So I'm going to put a margin at the top of 5 pixels and a margin at the bottom of 5 pixels, but I don't want to add any additional margins to the left or the right. So now it's just given a nice little space between the header image, the navigation, and the image below. So that's the links and navigation taken care of. Then what I might do is just do a little bit of work on the block quote, maybe the citation as well. The citation is not working for some reason. Oh no, there it is, citation. And the sections. So, to start off with, I'll add in a rule for the tag of section. I would normally do the article itself and then the sections. Since we've only got one article, it's not going to make an awful lot of difference. Picking up my style sheet. Just click OK and then select that file. Save. Okay. Let's try that again. Actually, I'll go to tag. Look for this section. Okay, let's go into main CSS now, and I will just indicate this with a border again. Kind of a dashed border thin. Again, a slightly dark border. Go with that for now. Okay. Save the style sheet. You'll notice that it's inserted the section there. And now you can see there are two sections, and we've actually got the block quote within one, so I'll effect some change to that. And the header, the footer is now separated. So I'm just going to put some margins into my sections. So just turn margin 5 pixels. See that? See what it looks like. And there we go. Some margins in. I think then I'll also want to put some padding into the sections, because now all the text is text into touching the borders. So we'll go 5 pixels padding again. Refresh that. There we go. Okay, so it's starting to make the page a little bit bigger as well, which is something we need to be mindful of. So you'll see padding shifting the image outside of this box, so on and so forth. So I need to fix that. Left. Padding right. Okay, so the reason that happened is just need to change the way that the A tag, which is an anchor tag used for hyperlinks and also for anchors, is being displayed. Because it's an inline element, we would rather it be a block level element or look like one, but at the same time still be in line. So that means what I'm going to do is to change the display to something called inline block. This will allow it to, so currently that's squashed the image, which is not what I actually wanted to do. The browsers tend to resize these in proportion, so this will be down to the fact that we've got a width and height value within the image set directly by the import. If I remove those, it should hopefully then fix the problem. There we go, so it's done in proportion now, and it's the same width as the header image. It's actually, I think I might just make the body size 810 to accommodate the header image and the padding. Save that, save all. Test that again. There we go, so the dotted line's moved around it a little bit. I'll leave it like that for now, but it's a little bit out in terms of calculations. Okay, so what we need to do then is maybe add some more visual representation of the navigation than just links. So I'll work on the link tag next in Dreamweaver. So a new CSS rule, this will be a tag, and then I'll be looking for a, click OK. And with this one, I'm going to set the box and give it specific width, so I might set that to 100 pixels to see what it looks like to start off with. Click apply, and let's give them a bit of a border too. This one can be dashed thin and a slightly darker colour than the last one perhaps. That's okay. And then I'll save the CSS file and test it again to see what it looks like there. Okay, it's not actually picked up the box size yet. So let's just okay, so to make the links show up correctly, we need to change the way that they're visible using what's known as a display property. So the A anchor tag is actually an inline type tag. We need it to be more of a block level tag. Block level tags are allowed to have like a box width and to appear more box like. But at the same time we want to appear in line rather than making them have the line returns that come with box level elements. So by changing it to display inline block, leaving the width at 100 pixels, it then works within the browser. Okay. Just revert this back. So take a look at the way that it looks in the browser window now, and those boxes are now appear to be the right size, and I've added a hover state, so that's A, the anchor, and then I've given it the hover state and changed the background colour. Now you can do that for pretty much any element that you can use in HTML, so that's quite a useful little trick for making things appear like they work like buttons. Okay, so the next thing I want to do is I want to amend the section settings. So I'm just going to create a new rule. This will be tag And look for section. If you type the first few letters in, it should go near there. And then just need to come outside of the CSS file because it's source code for the HTML I need. Try that again. Go for the tag again. Section. Okay. Okay, with the section, what I'm going to do is I'm going to give it border so we can see it. Dashed again, thin again, and a darkish grey. I'm also going to add some padding, sorry, some margin and padding. So the margin I'm just going to give top and bottom 5 pixels here and there, just so that it separates out each section a little bit. And I will also add a little bit of padding. I just want the padding to be right and left again, so apply that. Go OK and save all. Just that again. And you'll see that the page is starting to get wider and wider in line with the header image, which is 800 pixels, because of the padding that I've been adding on to the left and right, and margins and things like that, making the page slightly bigger. But you can see now we've got the footer at the bottom of the page, it stands out. We've got a section here, and then we've got a section with an image and a block quote and a citation. So all I'm going to do is I might just change the way that the citations look now a little bit by putting a rule in for cite. I think I quite like the colour to just be a lighter colour now, so that stands out a little bit. But equally is slightly dropped back. Okay, that's a little bit too far. So it needs to be a little bit darker than that grey. So let's just find a blue-grey somewhere around that we've been working with. Too light. I'll try it at that. Okay. Maybe go a little bit darker, but for now that's the way I'm going to leave it. I'm going to add in the block quote. What I'm going to do with that is I want it to look a bit more like a heading. So I'm going to go with font size. I'm going to go with maybe 3, which will be quite large. Have a quick look at that. And it's much bigger now, so the quote looks like something a bit more imposing. I could also go on to make some changes to the footer. I think I'm going to leave that like that. Okay, so the only thing I'm going to do now is center the page, because currently everything's across to the left, like this in the browser window. And the way that I do that is I go back to the body tag, and I set the margin for the body itself to auto. I save that, just double check it. There we go. Okay, it looks quite narrow in this page because it's using an old size with the banner image, 800 width. But for all intents and purposes, that works okay.